Hey folks, and welcome back to Terribly Honest with David Tenson. Thank you so much for your patience between episodes. I didn't make promise of weekly episodes, it's just the way it's been. And we had a bit of a break over the Christmas, New Year's. Had a bit of a break that's been good and kind, but I've also been posting a lot of stuff to social media as well. So I've been writing quite a bit of poetry and a lot of prose, and I'm working on a book, a manifesto. A manifesto is usually shorter than a standard book, so that's a bonus. And mine is going to be on, and I know I've touched on this before, but this is a great preface to this episode, is it's going to be on this topic of eldering and elderhood and moving beyond the post-parenting stage into this afternoon of life, or the second stage of life. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today, but the manifesto is going to be around that, and it's going to just cover some thoughts and problems I believe that we're facing in society as a largely elderless society. I'm going to define what eldering is, and in this episode I'm going to cover a theoretical framework that was created by a number of people at an organization called the LifeModel. Some of the people that have created this, I think the most prominent character is a psychologist and theologian, and I believe he studied neurology as well. He's known as a neurotheologian in some circles. His name is Dr. Jim Wilder, or Dr. James Wilder, and we're going to talk about the life model. And some of you might be familiar with this. I did talk about this in the first season, but as you know, that's been scrubbed. And I wanted to cover it now, perhaps in shorter form if possible. And I'm actually going to go through a number of developmental psychological models, or developmental life cycle models, and talk about life stages. And this is really important for us to understand what stage of life we're in. A lot of these life stages and theories that we're going to cover over the next few episodes, they differ in their focus. Some of them are societal and social. Some of them are chronological, meaning they really are dependent on age. Some of them are psychological. Some of them are mythological. Some of them are a mix. So they might be start in psychological and end in mythopoetic. And I'm thinking about Bill Plotkin's 8 stages of life and development. What is great about these is they let us know where we are. They let us know where we might be. They also might even point towards areas that we might be able to mature in. What a lot of these models tend to point out is that through a series of events, even though we might age chronologically or age society in a societal sense, and by that I mean we go through being a teenager, we have an adult, we have kids, etc. Then we move on to being an older person. Whatever those are, we all have the capacity, tendency to get stuck and to no longer to mature through to the end of this thing. Your age might mature, but some of these other aspects do not mature. And regardless of who writes the framework and who creates it or modifies another one, we tend to see that people get stuck and people don't make it all the way to the end. That is almost universal in all the frameworks that I've looked at. A lot of the popular ones are like this. And part of my effort in, and this thing has been gripping me, folks. I'm telling you, I've tried to push it aside, but it is something that really feels like it needs to come through me. It's come to me and through me I have this moment of I'm thinking, okay, Dave, you're 40, only 47 this year. It's not like you're 60 or 70 thinking about the last bus stop and the last few stations in life. You got to move on. I don't know if it's my exposure to working in aged care. I don't know if it's the fact that my kids are moving towards leaving home stage, even though they're not leaving home because we live in a cost of living crisis here in Australia. But all those factors are just adding up to something that has had me return to something that I did for a decade in my 30s, and that was I talked about life stages, I talked about the blessing, I talked about maturity, and it's as if the last 7 years has been a kind of initiation. I've picked up a lot of things, moved children all the way through their teenage years, got a college education, doing a PhD, a whole lot of things. So anyway, that is a very long preamble and intro, but that's what it's going to be for this series. So let's talk about the life model. And if you want to look it up, it's usually written in one word, life model. There is a book called Living from the Heart Jesus Gave You, by James Wilder and a whole number of authors. Good book, little book. I think they've revised it a few times. If you go to lifemodelworks.org or .com, I don't remember, you can Google that. That you'll find some stuff there from them. They do a lot of things around joy. This is the team that created the Emmanuel approach when it comes to inner healing. Fantastic and gentle approach for people to use to help regulate themselves and move through difficult traumatic events in a therapeutic setting. And it's something that you can begin to practice on your own. So that's the life model. What these guys did is took some popular, and to be honest, I can't remember what they borrowed, but they took some other popular developmental stages, because we are talking in the realm of developmental psychology here. And just by the way, psych is another word for soul, right? Psychology, the ology of the soul, the psyche, the soul. They took this, I think they took Erik Erikson's or maybe some others, and mapped out the human life, but also mapped it out and said, what does this look like? What does it look like for somebody to be born and to grow through life in a community, and particularly a community of faith? So there is definitely, without apology, this a sense of being part of a community of faith, although it's certainly not exclusive in their model. So the stages are, here's the overview. The stages are the infant stage, okay, which is birth through to 3. That's the infant stage. The next stage is the child stage, which is age 4 through to 12. The next stage is the adult stage, right? The adult stage is from 13, so we're talking 13 years old through to the birth of their first child. The model does assume some kind of parenthood, just saying. Okay, so you're an adult from the time you're 13 through to your first child. Then you move into parenting, and the parenting stage is from the birth of the first child until the youngest child becomes an adult, e.g. 13. And then the elder stage is when the youngest child has become an adult, so 13 plus, okay? So again, 0 to 3, 4 to 13, 13 to the first child. Parenting is first child through to when the last child turns 14, 13 or 14. So that's it. And that's not a common model, but they are using some things that have been used in other wisdom traditions, in other cultures, and that is there's no such thing as the construct of a teenager, right? You are a young adult by the time you turn 13. And plenty of cultures had rites of passage in those times. I mean, heck, when I was in Melbourne, in the early 90s, living in Melbourne, we had a Jewish next door neighbor. His name was Raphael, and Raphael, when he turned 13, had a bar mitzvah. And I got invited, and I wore the little kippah and went along and saw him read from the Torah, get celebrated by people, get absolutely spoiled with thousands of dollars worth of gifts. And he was entered and celebrated into being a young adult. Girls in my class were having bat mitzvahs. This is something culturally missing, but it's something that LifeModel put in. I like it. I like it because I like the concept that we begin to treat our teenagers as young adults. Anyway, I digress. I'm going to give you a quick overview of some of the things that are in the LifeModel and the LifeModel include, and talk about what they focus on particularly, and what they suggest you do about changing it and where you end up if you do it successfully. I'm going to put a link to a good and handy PDF that if you Google, you'd find. I'll just put a link in the notes to a great sheet that I've got, which just has some talking points and just breaks things down a lot, so that if you want to know more, it's handy to know. I just need to tell you this. I should have started with this. Some people have asked me, what are some of the best books you've read, or the tools you've used and the frameworks that you and Natalie have used in your parenting? And this is it. Understanding the LifeModel and what the maturity tasks, expectations, and capacity that each of us have as we develop through life has been fundamentally important to us, and this model's informed us immensely. I'm so grateful for it. I am so grateful for it because it has theoretical attachments, theoretical connections to attachment theory, which Tara Boothby and I talked about in our last episode, attachment theory. You can listen to that episode. It has connections to that, and also has some underpinnings around the neurological capacity of a person as they develop through life. For example, an 8-year-old girl should not have to parent and does not have the capacity to parent her 4-year-old daughter or brother because of mum and dad's absence. If they do, there's going to be some kind of negative effect. So they're really quite holistic and maybe even idealistic, I'm going to say. Right? There are some idealistic things, but all these models have idealistic generalizations. You can't have a model that is built on the fringes. It has to be in the mean, in the middle. So this has been good because it let us know as our children developed what is expected, what is fair to expect from them, and then we start to take into account things that are unique, like if they're not neurotypical, what is a fair expectation? So there are a number of things in this model which are good. The other thing is important is that at every development, and you'll see this on the download if you download it, at every part of this, we have the personal tasks, what the person themselves, what the individual is responsible for. Then there's the community and family tasks. So they kind of point out that, we are born into some kind of family or community, and throughout our lives, we're involved in family and community, and the community has a task as well, and the tasks of the community, or the lack of tasks of the community, affect and impact our maturity and development, because this ultimately, the LifeModel is a maturity model. It is ultimately about maturing well and being at a psycho-spiritual level of development that matches your sort of age and stage of life, as it were. Okay, so family and community are important in this model, what family and community are there. So let's start. Again, the infant stages, birth through 3. These are newborns and toddlers, right up to the age where they can effectively say what their needs are. Yep. The primary task of somebody in this is to be the primary task that is to be completed, right? You finish this level when you learn to receive. So from 0 to 3, your job is not to make mum and dad happy, right? Or to give them sleep because you don't, or to be a good boy or girl. Your job is to learn to receive. To learn to receive love, nourishment, and all those things without asking, because you can't yet. But if you have healthy and mature, attuned parents and community around you, they will be attuned and attentive to your needs. And you and I should learn at that point in time that when I have needs, people are around, attuned, connected, and attached to me well enough that my needs are met and I learn to receive them. I'm not going to digress too far here, but here is a task a lot of people, and this is something I had to recover from early as well, but a lot of, I got healing, quite a lot of healing and things around this when I realized I was really bad at receiving. I was just a chronic and serial giver and codependent, and I struggled to receive gifts, receive compliments, receive help. I was just shit at it. And I realized just through therapy and through the help of the Holy Spirit, some things that had I'd believed and things that had happened in these early formative years that had me believe that it was unsafe to have needs, and my needs didn't matter as much as the needs of some of my caregivers and people around me. Okay. So your personal tasks are to live in joy, you develop trust, you learn to receive, you begin organizing yourself into a person through relationships, you learn how to return to joy from every unpleasant action, right? There are people around you that when you're upset will help you return to joy. I'm not going to go into it, but the Life Model have some of the most profound and wonderful material, including, some good scientific base around what joy is and how it works and where it sits in the brain, how to develop a joy center in your brain. Fantastic stuff. And this is why when you see babies, we try and make them smile. It's almost innate that, you look in the face of a child and you're like, oh, you're going, here's a little boy, here's my little girl. And you try and make them smile. You bring them back to joy. You help them regulate. A lot of regulation, co-regulation happens in this stage. So people who have a community around them where the parent delights in the child, the parents build strong, loving bonds with them. They give them care that matches their needs without the infant asking, because they can't discover true characteristics of infants' identity through their behavior and character. This is when you begin to notice the difference between your child and others. And you provide enough safety and companionship during difficulty so the infant can return to joy without any other situation. This is all on the spreadsheet, but the spreadsheet also has this great column about when it fails. So what's it look like when it fails, right? If these sort of tasks fail, you're the sort of person that has a weak identity, fear, coldness, there's dominant bonds with others, they have difficulty bonding, which leads to manipulation or self-centeredness or isolation. They're withdrawn, disengaged, they have an inability to regulate emotions, or they've got uncontrollable emotional outbursts, excessive worry, depression. All these things can stem back to these first core and developing needs. Is your brain and your identity, is your psyche, is all developing, and it can only develop to the capacity and ability of others around you. The good news is, of course, we have neuroplasticity. You can go back and learn all these tasks again and repair from them. Might not be as easy. You might have a trail of disaster and a shit show behind you because you haven't learned them, but you can always go back. Here's the great message within the life model is if there are maturity tasks that you haven't met, you can go back. And I had to learn that. I couldn't receive a compliment. I'd play and sing in front of 1,000 people at church on a Sunday, and I struggled to receive a compliment. Even if it came to me, I just couldn't receive it. Yeah, I couldn't receive gifts. I couldn't receive invitations. I'd shrug them off. I'd ignore them as if they never came to me. And when I found healing from this, my life changed profoundly. And this is something that I just picked up early in life. If you were, I'm not, anyway, let's digress. I digress, don't want to. We have lots to do. That's the infant task and the infant stage. So from 4 to 13, right, you have this next stage, which is the child stage. And this is the transition from infant stage. It's marked by the child being able to say what is needed. Age 12 is the earliest age this stage can be completed. So that you don't and shouldn't move towards adulthood, and neurologically you're not actually wired to move beyond this, right? Because adulthood is taking care of yourself and a significant other. The amount of children or people through circumstances, dysfunction, death, divorce, a whole lot of things who end up pseudo-parenting. By that I mean they're pretending to be a parent, they're in the parent stage, they're parenting and looking after siblings and other people before they're neurologically ready. There's a price to pay for that. And we know that there's war and there's a whole lot of things that can lead to that, but they're not actually ready to do that.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi.
Hello.
Good.
Yeah, that's me out on a walk and some happy cyclists here. So the primary task in this stage is to basically take care of yourself, right? So once a child can take care of themselves, I'm talking about all the basic needs, right? They can ask for their needs and get some needs met and learn by the time they're 13, 12, 13. Maybe it's a bit delayed. You can ask what they want and they can look after themselves. I'm going to give you some examples from our own family. Our youngest is 14. By the time all our children, particularly our boys, just by way of time and the way life has gone, and learning all these things for ourselves, and Natalie and I walking through these stages and finding gaps and fixing them. All our children easily could dress themselves, wash themselves, get ready for school themselves, pack a lunchbox themselves, cook breakfast, lunch, or dinner of some sort for themselves. They could do tasks around the house, right? So just very practical things about living into adulthood, right? All our kids can cook. In fact, like our kids are beginning to match and outdo some of our cooking. Now, my boys like to work out, so they eat a heck of a lot. What they can't do, well, my 20-year-old can, but what the others can't do because they don't have the license and capacity to do it yet, or the money, they can go shopping with us, but they couldn't just go out to the shops, buy what they need, go and cook. But that's a very easy task, and it's just enabled by transport and money. But they would figure that out, because they come food shopping with us, tell us what they want, think about what they want. For all these things are important to us, and a lot of that happened before they were 13. They're very practical things, but as far as maturity tasks are concerned, the personal tasks in this stage are they ask for what's needed, right? And they can say what, and they can say what they think and feel. Now, how many of us can do that? I mean, that's hard for a lot of adults. for a lot of parents, for a lot of people in the 60s and 70s. I know, I work in aged care. There's some people who I can't tell you how they feel or what they think. And it's not because of neurodegeneration. They were just never allowed, never grew up in communities that helped them, never had communities that taught them and allowed them to appropriately articulate their needs. Another task is they learn what brings satisfaction, right? They also develop enough persistence to do hard things. This is a big thing, right? During this childhood, from 4 to 12, you're learning to do hard things. Now, at no point in this stage am I asking them to take care of someone else. In fact, our daughter, who's 4 years older than the next and 6 years older than the next, there were times where, sure, we'd need help, like, honey, could you go and just quickly grab a wipe for mummy or daddy, or can you just grab a nappy, or could you just grab that from the car? Little tasks, but there was no, we had to actually be careful and pull her back sometimes because we know she wanted to do more and wanted to pretend she was a parent, maybe judged our incompetence in it. I don't know. She's very clever and attuned, but we had to say, honey, that's not your job. That is not your job. We appreciate that you want to help us, but that's not your job. Your job now is to, heck, look at your room, go clean your room. Do something that is about taking care of yourself. Also, in this child stage, 4 to 12, you develop personal resources and talents. You know yourself, and you take responsibility for to make yourself understood by others, or understandable, I should say, and they understand how he or she fits into history. What's the big picture? The community has a whole lot of tasks here. They really help the child discover what's unique about them. They guide them in some of these tasks of how to take care of yourself. They evaluate consequences of certain behavior. All these basic things. And when this fails, there's a whole lot of stuff. People become obsessed or addicted with food, drugs, sex, money. A lot of this happens at this stage. They have failure. They remain stuck, undependable. Life's just full of unproductive activities. They won't do the basics, like just some basic stuff. Like I don't mind you playing some games on your computer, or watching TV or whatever the thing is, but you have to tidy your bed and put your clothes away. Put them in the basket. Move them 30 centimeters to the left in there and put them in the basket, and hang your damn towel up. Hang your towel up. That's yours. Otherwise, it'll be wet and moldy later on because we live in a tropical environment. So, just hang that up, mate. And then we can, here are some things. We guide you through this. And as they get older, it's like, yeah, you can do that, but here are the tasks you need to do first. And we slowly introduce them and allow them to do things around the house, domestic things, but that's selective and by age and ability. And we try and, in our house, you might be different, but we try and make sure that there's not sort of these gender typical tasks that maybe, the girls did the dishes and the boys, I don't know, took out the trash. Everybody does. Everybody pitches in. So, yeah, if they fail to develop true identity. If you fail in this area, they can feel disconnected from history and so on. Part of a bonus of being part of a faith community is that you are religious, and this could be across religious beliefs, is you feel part of something bigger. You feel that your life has a real historic meaning. My son, who made his own decision to become a Christian a few years ago, and I know I've talked about this, and is involved in church and other things, he's learning that, I have a faith that is thousands of years old. I'm grafted into this system. Here's some of my history. Here's the history of my belief system. I'm part of something bigger. All those things can be really helpful, and he has a faith community that helped him develop that. Now, he had that. He's getting that now in his teens. He had some basic sense of that when he was younger, but he also got to know his grandparents who told him stories about what it was like. He knows about his history, knows where he comes from. Okay, moving along, we have the adult stage. Really, this is 13 until the time. It's about basically 13. All the multitasks that we just explained in the child stage, you usually aren't going to reach it to 12 or 13. I'm just telling you. It's about the earliest stage, so you might not. People don't reach adult stage. Some people don't reach this stage or miss tasks in it for the rest of their life. This is true. They're not really adults. They're just still stuck in the immaturity of children, and there's people that often enable that and circumstances that have caused that. But that's this age, and the primary task is to take care of two people simultaneously, right? So when I met Natalie, and she became my wife and was my first serious long-term girlfriend, just the way it worked for us, I remember, and I joke about this, we got married young, and I remember here we are, 20, we've moved out, we're living in our own little apartment. We'd be watching TV at night on the couch, and I walk over to the kettle, turn it on, and make a single cup of tea, and I'd come back, and she'd say, with this little cheeky but slightly pissed off look in her face, "Oh, that's for me, is it?" I'd be like, "Oh, yeah, that's for you. I'm just going to go back and make myself one." An adult, right, their primary task is to look after themselves, simultaneously consider another person to take care of the other person, right? That's the job of this task. It's not a family and it's not a community, right? They've learned to take care of themselves. Now they're learning to take care of somebody else simultaneously. And when this isn't completed, they just lack the maturity and capacity to have satisfying relationships, because in this model, they suggest the satisfying relationships come through effort, right? And that effort is rewarded through a sense of satisfaction that you've invested in and got a return from the relationship, because the whole idea here is that as we move towards parenting and elderhood, we think less of ourselves and need from others in many ways less, because we have learnt to make our needs known. We've learnt to love and be loved and receive love. As Tara says, we learn, if it was good and ideal in this stage, we would learn that we were loved, loving, and lovable. And we'd have a good and secure attachment. That's a reference to the last episode. So, in this stage of adulthood, the tasks are to take care of yourself and someone else simultaneously in a mutually satisfying relationships. You remain stable in difficult situations and know how to return yourself and others to joy. You bond with peers. You develop a group identity. You take responsibility. Look at creation singing here. You take responsibility for how personal actions affect others, including protecting others from yourself. All right, you're angry, you can't regulate yourself. I need to go for a walk. That's a healthy adult action, for example. Contributes to the community, doesn't control or care for it, but contributes, okay, to the community, and it articulates who they are as part of belonging to it, and they express the characteristics of his or her heart in deepening personal styles. All right, the community's job in this is to provide a chance to participate in group life, teaches young adults that their behavior impacts on others, impacts history, and a whole lot of other stuff you'll find in the spreadsheet. When this fails, when people don't finish the adult stage, they end up self-centered, they leave others dissatisfied and frustrated, they conform to peer pressure, participate in negative, destructive group activities, they are loners with tendencies to isolate, they end up controlling, harmful, blaming, unprotective of others. They do not become life-giving contributors to community. They're self-absorbed, they use others, they drain society, and they're driven to play roles to prove themselves to the world and get results and seek approval, right? So when people, it says, with adult bodies are functioning below adult level of maturity, you'll know, because in the end of your interactions with them, it'll never feel mutual. You'll go away feeling like, in order to maintain a relationship with them, you'll always need to give them more, listen more, and tolerate more from them than they would be ever willing to do from you. So you might know people, even in their 60s and 70s, who every time you meet, they just do not have this capacity to say, so how are you? How are things with you? You're really great at that. I love that about you. This looks really interesting. Tell me about that. How's this person in your life? How are you finding that? Right? And I got to tell you, I meet more and more of these people than I wish I did, honestly. And it's an indication that they never really completed the adult stage. And you know, it's funny, as I opened up and prefaced this episode, so many models point out that people get stuck here and never really move on. The idea in life is to maybe start, it's easiest to put like this, you start at the center of the circle and you need to end out on the edge. You start as the focus of attention and you end being able to give focus of your attention to others. It becomes a deep challenge. And, you know, I think just even talking about this, there are relationships I've not been able to maintain because I know in my own self, I've worked pretty hard to move through these stages. And I say that as fact, and those who know me, I think, can safely say, yeah, Dave, totally. Totally, dude. You've totally moved through those stages. They can attest to this. This is something I know through 20 years of parenting as well, and 27 years in a relationship with that, is there are just some relationships that I just cannot maintain in friendship because they do not give back. It is not mutually satisfying. It is all about them. I turn up, we have a chat, and I end half an hour conversation, and I think, you didn't ask a single freaking thing about me. I don't need to be important to you, but I need to know that I matter. And for this to be mutually satisfying, the grace has to flow both ways. Yep, that's it. So those relationships can be hard to maintain, but it's interesting. You find a lot of these people tend to flock together and they never have conversations. They have an intersection of monologues. They never learn or talk or grow from each other or go somewhere from one another or be challenged by one another because they're just still self-absorbed little children in a playground talking about the latest toy, how I'm better than you, how I'm stronger than you. It's just the way it is. And life is full of these. And these people end up in leadership and they end up as parents and they end up going through life because time doesn't stop them. They continue to be in adult bodies and aged bodies and aging bodies and parenting bodies and grandparenting bodies, never have moved past this stage. Right? Adults know how to remain stable in difficult situations. They can turn and can return to self and others to joy. They know how to return others to joy. People who cannot do this will avoid or escape or get stuck in certain emotions, crippling many of their endeavors in relationships. For example, if I avoid anger, it eventually explodes into rage. If I get stuck in shame and failure, I may become depressed or even suicidal. Good news is you can recover from this. You can grow again. You can learn them. And sometimes they're very practical activities. I know in the Alcoholics Anonymous sort of protocols and as part of their program, they have this fabulous sort of rule is that if you call someone else in the program, the first thing you say when you call them is, "How is your day?" Right? Which is a great adult task, because you're calling someone from help, but they might be having the shittest day on the planet, and you and the immature adult who's still basically a forever teenager, emotionally immaturity, goes and just has this outburst of everything that's wrong, everything that happened, and I need help. But no, you start with, "How's your day? How you doing?" Great practice. Oh my gosh. Some of you should practice this, right? Don't text your partner, your friend, "Oh my God, I had the worst day today." Start with, "How's your day?" "I'm so upset right now, such and such said this." No, how was your day? How was your day? How are you going? And also, here's how mine's been going. Thanks for asking. All right. Moving on, the parenting stage, right? This is the birth of the first child until the youngest child becomes an adult. Again, so in other episodes, I've spent like 10 or 15 minutes trying to explain what if you're not a parent and you never had children or you couldn't have children. We're talking about a maturity life model here. I'd like to say this because whenever I used to teach this publicly, somebody would come up. I remember a teacher coming up to me. She'd been a teacher for 15, 20 years, maybe even longer. Great teacher, loved by everybody, carried a lot of joy, helped a lot of kids, and said, "I never was able to get married or have kids. What about me? Am I excluded from this? Am I stuck in adult stage?" And I had to say to her, look around you. Look at how you bring others to joy, how you have completed these maturity tasks in other ways, with other kinds of people in need, right? I remember a business guy coming up to me. He'd had a number of employees. He had a large team that he managed. And I said, "Look at how you've managed this team. Look at how you've loved on these people. Look at how you've helped them. Look at how you've ticked off most of the things in this maturity task, aside from giving birth to them. Look how you've sacrificed for them. Look how you've helped these staff work through, mature, get through. You can tick this off without having kids." Just want to start with that. But that would involve you looking for opportunities to do this. Maybe changing job, maybe changing career, maybe volunteering, maybe helping extended family, doing something to be active to help you mature into this stage and beyond, parenting into eldering. So the parenting stage, this happens when you take care of children. That's the primary task. And the resulting problem is that when it's not completed, people end up with distance and conflicting family relationships, right? So mature, honest, engaged, self-regulating, attuned parents that raise children tend to maintain good relationships from them and good relationships with them. It's no guarantee, but I can tell you it totally increases chances. If you find for me good, mature, balanced adult people in adults parenting stage, maybe in their 20s, 30s and beyond, who have good relationships with their parents and extended family, you turn up to a family dinner or a barbecue and you just find a whole shitload of mature people who've done these tasks and were blessed enough to either, live and come from lineage full of others that had this around them, that weren't diseased with dysfunction and all kinds of stuff. So, you know that you're at parenting stage when you can sacrificially care for your children without resenting the sacrifice or expecting to receive anything for your efforts. Let me read that again. This is parenting stage. You're at this stage when you can sacrificially care for your children without resenting the sacrifice or expecting to receive anything in return. Okay? You may feel exhausted or overwhelmed at times, but you will still be able to appreciate and not begrudge your sacrifice. Now, this is not popular in some cultures and some opinions because as I said, this is an emergence of parenting. which I'm just going to say is pretty self-centered, and I think it's just a twisted view of what might be some basic maturity tasks to take care of yourself, has turned into endless pleasure for adults, and just a genuine, they've outsourced the sacrificial part of it, some of them, and they've not really understood that sacrifice is important, right? That giving is important. As I said, you have to move from being an egocentric child to a decentered elder. That's what society needs. That's where you need to go. That's what will bring you satisfaction. That's how you end your life with meaning. That's how you fill it with meaning. By filling it with others, and understand that being a parent is freaking sacrificial. Yeah, and it's necessary. It's necessary. It is a sacrificial role. It's not about you anymore. Strong words from Dave. This is terribly honest, okay? So, in this stage, you protect, you serve, and enjoy your family. In this stage, you're devoted to taking care of children without expecting to be taken care of by the children in return. Why? Because you learn how to do that in the other 3 stages. You learn how to receive care. You learn how to care for yourself as a child, as an adult. You learn to be in a mutually satisfying relationship, okay? And it's not your child's job to bring you satisfaction, to make you happy, to make you feel complete. God help the child who grows up with a job to keep mum and dad together, or keep mum and dad happy, or mum and mum happy, or dad and dad happy. Have kids when you're willing to sacrifice. Be a sacrificial parent who doesn't need the child. Just saying. Right? Your child is not neurologically developed to be your confidant, to be your best friend, to be your little helper, to be the person that you divulge in, to be the person that gives you unconditional love. Get God or a dog for those things. It's not a child's job. It's not a child's job. It's your job to take care of the children without wanting anything in return. Okay, number 3, it allows and provides spiritual parents and siblings for their children. And also, in this stage of parenting, you learn how to bring the children through difficult times and return to joy from other emotions. The community has a job in this for you, has some tasks too. Community and family give the opportunity for both parents to sacrificially contribute to their family, right? They help them. So a community of elders and other parents can help other parents give sacrificially. Yeah, because sometimes we over-sacrifice, sometimes we're done, we're depleted, we're finished, and that's when we reach out, or if you have a good attuned family, they're like, hey, listen, you guys need a date night every Thursday for the next 6 months. We're just going to look after the kids. Drop them off at our house, or we'll come over. I don't care if you go to the restaurant, you go have sex, or you go to a hotel, or you even go back to our house. There's a spare bed there. Have fun. Go to sleep if you need for 3 hours. We don't care. We're just going to have the children for you, right? The community promotes developed parenting. The community encourages relationships between children and extended spiritual members, and the community in this stage supports parents by giving them encouragement, guidance, breaks, opportunities to recharge. Now, if you don't do this well, when this task fails, family members are at risk, they're deprived, they feel worthless. Children have to take care of parents, which is impossible, leads to child abuse and neglect, parentified or pseudo-parenting, or flipped parenting. There's a whole lot of words for this. Parental inversion. where the children, which blocks maturity later on in life. Children are vulnerable to peer pressure, cults, misfortune. They're less likely to receive in life's goals. Just a whole lot of stuff happens, right? This is when the life stages begin to cross over into the infant and child stages. So this is parenting. It's sacrificial. It's just what it is. Okay. The authors mentioned that entitlement philosophy pervades modern parenting. I entitled to do all the things I was doing as an adult, and I should not have to make any sacrifices of time, money, or social activities. Don't misunderstand. Parenting does involve sacrifice, but it's not about giving up who you are, but about becoming who you are. Yep. Entitlement philosophy. I'm entitled to have my life, the life I had before. I see parents who never really move from adulting stage. They still want to party, they still want to have all the things, they still want to work full time, they still want to have everything. It's just not part of the deal, guys. It's just not part of the deal, just to be honest. Like, downplay your life, be sacrificial. All right? We did. It was unpopular. There's a number of reasons we are not in a situation in our mid to late 40s where we have this financial security or financial capital that other people our age do. But I can tell you, we have an emotional and relational and social capital with our children and in other parts of our lives, because that's where we've invested and that's where we've sacrificed. It's really simple. I'm not setting my kids up here as trophies or us, pure example, and I could say the same of other families that we've known and encountered over the years. In these families, and I know things have changed economically, which is a thing, and I know circumstances change, which is a thing, but I'm going to tell you from our lives, people love our kids on the whole. People always tell us that our kids are lovely, polite, kind, good workers, all the positive things. In the same way as you went to somebody's house who spends a lot of time and money on it, and they say, hey, your house is really nice, your kitchen's nice, I love your backsplash, I like what you've done, where you guys have really accumulated a lot here, it's really nice. People say that about our kids because that's where our time and money and effort have gone. We've just prioritized health, mental health, time with them. We can make up, we only get to do this once. And so we made some really hard and tough decisions. We drove shit cars, we went through bankruptcy, but we have this richness because we just believe that parenting should be sacrificial. And it was costly, and it's cost us, and it forced us to mature as parents. It was no longer about us. Yeah, I had to just make do. Just make do. Yep. Did we make mistakes? Yep. Did we have some challenges? Absolutely. Did we move through them? We overcome. And we're living on the other side of some great return on our investment. Yep. Have we taken our kids to psychologists and therapists? Yep. Have our children been through difficult emotional situations? I mean, COVID was terrible for us. The whole thing, living all together in the same home, kids in child stage, kids in early adult stage, just was rough, but we got help, we got mental health support afterwards, we did all the things we needed to do, right? I didn't buy new shoes, I sent my kids to the psychologist. I didn't buy a new car, we invested in some extra schooling tools. We invested in other things, just the way it is. It's the way it's been for us. Why? Because we believe in sacrificial parenting. We believe and enjoy it. Yeah, it's just the way it is. All right. Terribly honest. mature parents are aware that they cannot provide everything for the children and will need and allow opportunities for others to come alongside the child and support. So we find other people in their lives at this stage. You can't be the only and wholly and solely adult role model in your child's life. So family, grandparents, uncles, aunties, if you had them, I didn't have them because all mine lived overseas. That was an interesting thing. But you might find youth leaders, scout leaders, sports leaders, community people, people outside of you. I mean, I think of, moments our kids did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for a couple of years, our boys did. Again, at expense, but it was important for them, and I wanted them to be exposed to this discipline and sport, and they had a great BJJ guy who said, if you're not winning, you're learning. And there's a whole lot of things they still carry with them. They still remember how we couldn't pronounce my son's name, Cadell. He called him Cordell. A whole lot of stuff. Uncles, aunties, but also, being part of a church, youth leaders, people would bring over friends, family. It's important to create these opportunities for kids. And sports can be great. Arts can be great. My daughter, we invested and drove her to art school, half an hour there, half an hour back to be part of that. Teachers at school, a whole lot of wonderful things. It's all possible. All right, in the end, mature parenting is about representing God to one's family in this framework. And when you accomplish that, you're ready to graduate to the final level of maturity, which is elderhood. The elder stage begins when the youngest child's become an adult. This is what we're at. My youngest turns 15 this year. I'm in elder stage, or I should be, or I could be, or the opportunities there. And I have some maturity tasks to complete. Primary task is to be completed during this stage is to sacrificially take care of a community. So I've learned over the last 20 years, or ideally you learn over the lifetime of your children as a parent, to sacrificially give and take care of them without needing anything in return. Such an important thing to remember. The primary resulting problem in this task is when it's not completed, the maturity of a community declines. Most in our culture never make it to this level of maturity. It's unfortunate because the success of any country, community, school, or church body will have a direct correlation to the presence of true elders who are guiding and advising. That's what this stage looks like. And yes, at 46, this is the stage I'm at, according to this model. And I like this. I really like this. It's simple and it makes sense. It's developmental. There are tasks to do. You can go back and fix things, or at least try and salvage them. You can find other ways to finish these tasks, recovery programs and all kinds of things. So your personal tasks in this elder stage is to establish an accurate community identity and act like yourself in the midst of difficulty. You prize each community member. You enjoy the true self in each person, looking past their flaws and facades to the person they've been designed to be. You see their true soul. You see into their spirit. You see into their potential. You see into the truth of their being, not just the way of their being, until the truth of the being becomes the way of their being, as Baxter Kruger talks about. Yeah. Parents, they parent and mature a community. They give life to those without family through spiritual adoption. And true elders, they're the four tasks. In a community, the community recognizes the elder. So the elder doesn't need anyone above them. They're just recognized. Now, hear me out. This is not the office of an elder or the title of an elder in a church. Forget that. This is a maturity task on a spiritual psychological developmental stage. It's not the elder of a church. I was an elder in my church at 20 before I had kids. So it's not the title. Think Indigenous, think other cultures, think other traditions, think maturity. It's not even a grandparent, it's not an elder. These are not qualifications. This is a maturity task and is a psycho-spiritual developmental model, and that's what the elder is here. And I love this. I think this is just fantastic. Yep. The community provides opportunities for elders to be involved with those in all other maturity stages. The community creates a structure to help elders do their job. It allows people at every stage of maturity to interact properly with those at other stages, listen to wisdom, places a high value on being a spiritual family to those without family. True elders establish an accurate community identity by finding what their community has been designed by God to be, rather than imposing what they'd like it to be. So this is an elder. They are decentered. They know who they are. They know where they come from. They can regulate themselves. They can see beyond flaws. They help others with parenting. They are guides on the side. They are sages. They are wise people. And they could be. I've got friends who's had children really early. They moved into elder stage, I think at 40 or the late 30s, because they'd parented for 20 years. They'd parent, and their youngest turned 14. Yep. And you can tell when you meet these people, on the whole, I think so. And this guy's the person I'm thinking of. They're both wonderful people, but he's just a great manager. Like, it's just great with people, great with teams. I love hanging out with him. It's a mutually satisfying relationship. He's a great and wonderful friend. And I can be friendly, but yeah, to be honest, I do have some standards, and part of it is because of this. Because as I talked about in the adult stage, when people get stuck in that, it's like it's all one way. It's all give, 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 and that's not where I'm at. I sort of left that in my teens and 20s. True elders act like themselves in the midst of difficulty. They can handle criticism and rejection. They speak truth in love, even when it's not easy or popular. They serve without being appreciated. They encourage needed growth and change. They delight in younger people's skills and power and place what is best for the community over the personal fairness or preferences. And when you're at this stage, and you should have learned this at parenting, it's not about you. It's not about you having your ego stroked, being seen and identified. It is important. I've been in churches and other communities where people have ticked these stages are acknowledged, and it's profound. They're acknowledged. They're not there for the accolades, because you shouldn't need it by then. You know who you are. You can sort that out by yourself, right? They can handle the criticism. Yeah, but these people are so precious because they can give without needing anything in return. There's no strings attached. Years ago, I wrote this framework on the five ascension gifts, or gifts of a Bible talks about in Ephesians: apostle, prophet, evangelist, shepherd, and teacher. And I think this is kind of what an apostolic person looks like. They can give without needing anything in return. They're able to give to others. They raise others up without needing to retain them or for a return. Yep, they invest in others without needing a return from them. They don't need to retain them. Hey, I raised you. I did this for you. If you hear that kind of language, this person's not moved on to elder stage. You stay with me, you stick with me, you'll go far. Again, not a thing. These people have learned what it means to release adults and parenting into the world, into God's hands, into their own journey, and they're there as guides and sages and helpers. Let me finish on a couple of little things. Take this as you will. I think a lot of church communities, because I know that part of this podcast we do talk about this, that are run by young parents or people who've not entered parenting, genuinely struggle as a community on the whole to reach high levels of maturity. They're often striving. They're often overly ambitious. They're still looking for things that people in adulthood will be in, because some of the core leaders are still learning, and hopefully still learning the gift and value and the practice of sacrificial parenting, and they're just about a decade behind. I have seen communities that are run by younger pastors and leaders who know this model, come from great and wonderful homes, understand how this works, and engage and employ and acknowledge and lean upon not quote unquote people that are elders in the, church position sense or title sense, but people in their faith community who are, according to this model, mature and can give and invest without return or retainment. They don't need the accolades. They just turn up. They're comfortable. They're there. They guide. They see wonderful things in others. And if these younger pastors and leaders lean upon these people who have passed parenting and done so well and successfully, and can tick a lot of these maturity tasks, then that community just has a whole different feel about it. They tend to have this instant feeling of longevity and comfort and creativity and belonging that others, the younger ones, have to create a false sense of. Right? There's a difference between, I've been at churches and the whole thing is welcome home, and there's banners and flyers and a nice big LCD screen. Welcome home, you're home, welcome here. Shouldn't have to say that. If there's plenty of elders around and there's a sense, just a little time in that community, you'll just get a sense that this does feel right. This does feel like there's a home. It does feel like I could quote unquote grow up here and have my children grow up here. So that's from some food for thought. I think there are just some challenges. Now, we do live in a neoliberal capitalist society, and there are denominations that are, overwhelmed and driven in a youth culture, and like our own, the young people, pick pastorhood as a career. I am going to say this, that according to this model, unless you've worked through parenting and your youngest is now, 12, 13 plus, and you've ticked all these boxes and you've moved through this, you do not have the capacity to genuinely care for a community, and it's unfair for a community to expect you to care for them while you're busy having to split yourself up between all the other tasks in life. You might not even have the neurological capacity to do that, or the practice. Doesn't mean you don't care, doesn't mean you don't love them, doesn't mean you're not called by God. But the framework and the situation isn't working in your favor if you're trying to raise a young family and genuinely raise and care for a community. Now, you can raise and develop a religious movement or capacity or a really good event on Sunday. But unless you have a community, I believe, that is first and foremost led towards maturity and growing up, and that is supported by and undergirded by a community of true elders, people that I've just explained, then you'll hit a cap, you'll hit a ceiling. You will only attract a certain kind of person, and you'll just stop attracting mature people as well. You'll want to retain parents, but a lot of those parents are parents stuck in adult stage because they need to look up towards people that have done this journey and done it well and can provide support, encouragement, and guide on being able to do that. So if you're a younger pastor or leader of a faith community listening to this, my encouragement would be to surround yourself, employ the help of true elders and mature elders in your community, and you'll know who they are because they don't want anything in return. They might be reluctant to do it. And you don't want them to freaking just babysit your kids, but give them some freedom and tasks to walk through this. Read that book, Living from the Heart Jesus Gave You. I think there's a whole chapter and thing around spiritual adoption, which is kind of a nice way of saying when elders find parents and families that they feel drawn to help. And it can be really practical stuff, folks, like, I'll give you an example. We were part of a community that had some great, wonderful elders for a time. And when I was traveling, doing ministry stuff, we had to move house. And it just happened on my calendar. I'd booked like months and months in advance. And so Natalie I packed a lot of stuff, but she had to move by herself, and we got removalists for us. But there were things like our trampoline wasn't put up. And these gentlemen from our church came and put the trampoline up for Natalie and the kids. They put some stuff away that I would have done had I been there. Some of the women, baked and provided some lunch, like really basic practical stuff. And they didn't want anything in return. It was their joy to be able to do it, just to be able to help and become family. Yeah, that's what this model looks like. And as they point out, we live in, and so many people point out, and I'm going to finish with this, I think we live in an elderless community. I think it's one of the plights on our time. I think that one of the reasons and the reason I like this model so much is it just maps the stages out really well. That in parenting stage, you just got to learn that it's not just hard work, but it should be sacrificial. It should cost you, but it should be satisfying. The effort should be satisfying. You shouldn't need anything in return from your kids. And all the things that I explained in that stage, that when you get beyond that, you don't revert to adulthood and this endless summer of having a good time, but you should be able to move into and beyond into this next stage of your life, knowing that the giving continues, the ecocentricity melts away, and a whole lot of things I'm going to explain in some models beyond this as well. So this is the first. I'm sharing this as one of the first models. It is my favorite, and this whole idea of decentered or decentric eldering is heavily influenced by this model, because I believe that we need more and more elders. And I think too, we live in my generation, the sort of late millennials, the late Gen Xers and the earlier millennials who are now having kids in their teens and in their adult years, 13 and above. A lot of us have been intentional. A lot of us have satisfied and enjoying raising our children and being around them. We want to know really what's next. Yeah, I don't want the endless summer I saw a lot of boomers have. Yeah, we have to reinvent and reimagine what elderhood looks like for us in our time, in our context, and that's really what this is about for me. And this is a passion for me that I'll just continue on for as long as I feel called or is necessary. All right, would love to know your thoughts, feedback on this. I'm going to put some links in the bio to help you with this as well. All right, have a wonderful day. Look forward to hearing from you.